Hello everyone, this is Joshua Reyes with Casual Game Studio, and we're going to talk about Perforce and UE4 Workflow. By the end of this video, I promise you will be able to add and delete projects from the depot, create and delete workspaces, connect Unreal projects to Perforce, add, revert, view, diff changes, some administration. So let's go ahead and jump in. So I'm going to start by opening up P4V, the visual client for Perforce, and here we are. I have my credentials already filled in, and I'm just gonna click OK and log in. So this is an overview of the workflow, so I'm assuming that you can already connect to your server, and you don't have to have a workspace to log in because we're going to be creating one. So here we are at the P4V client, and here's my depot and my workspace. Now, the depot is where files on Perforce server are stored. They're stored in the depot. By default, there is one depot on every server, and the name is depot. You can rename it if you want to, but for this, I left mine as default depot. So here's where your projects reside on the server. You see here I have a couple projects I'm working on. Rooster Rampage, my current one, and here is the workspace. So a workspace would be your local copy of the depot. So I could have various workspaces on my laptop or my main PC. I could have my teammates log into my depot server and have their own workspace. So the depot is just basically where all your files are uploaded to and downloaded from. Okay, so we're going to start by adding a project to our depot. And we're going to do that through a new workspace. So I'm going to go ahead and click on workspace. If you don't have that, view workspace, Control 0. And I am going to create a new workspace now. So you can left click here and choose new workspace, or you can do it in the workspaces tab over here through view, workspaces, or Control 5. So Control 5, right click, and new workspace. Here we are at the create new workspace prompt, and we need to define a few things. First, the workspace name, which is a context name for you to identify the workspace by. For example, laptop workspace, or for this YouTube example. Also, the workspace root, which is the location where the files will be stored. Your stream, we're not using a stream-based depot, so we won't be using a stream. And then your workspace mappings. So the workspace mappings are going to dictate which files or which projects that you will download to your workspace root, or which files you have access to, or if they are mapped to your workspace root. So for this example, I'm not going to download any of the projects. So we're going to exclude them by right clicking and clicking exclude. So that way we're not mapping any of these projects from my depot to this workspace, because we're using this one to upload a new project. Okay, so we're just going to click OK. Now that we have the new workspace, which you can verify with view workspaces or Control 5, you can see it right here. YouTube example, creation date, owner, and host. I'm going to right click on the folder and I'm going to show and explore. I do that to verify that I'm copying to the correct folder. And I'm just going to drop my project in here. So everything in green is what you'll want to copy over from your project. The config, content, source if it's a C++ project, the U project, and the .png. You want to omit build, drive data cache, intermediate, and saved, because those are generated when you open the project or build. You also are going to want to add a P4Ignore file to the root of your workspace. It's going to specify files and folders to ignore. So that way, once you open up your project and it starts generating saved and binaries and builds, that they're not uploaded to the depot. Okay, so now I'm back at P4V, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh it, and we can see that now my project is showing up in our workspace. So now what I'm going to do is mark for add. So you can right click and mark for add, or you can click on the toolbar up here, add. So I'm going to right click, mark for add. We can see right here their progress on the lower right hand corner that it's marking the files for add. So we'll just wait for that to complete. And now we can verify that files have been marked for add with the plus sign, or also hovering over them, and you can see that they were marked for add in default change list. So we're going to go ahead and submit the change list. So you can right click, submit, or you can go up here on the toolbar. I'm going to go ahead and add a change list description. So added initial files. And you can see here the files that are going to be added. I'm going to leave everything default here, and I'm going to submit. Okay, so now let's verify that it has been added to the depot. We're going to go over to our depot. You can go view, depot tree, or control 9. And we can see that my project has been added to the depot. So now you could download it on your laptop, have your teammates download it, what have you. Okay, so let's open up the project in our workspace so we can connect it to source control. Okay, here is the project. I'll let it load up. So now, what you'll want to do is change source control settings. Mine automatically kind of filled out because I have it set to pick up the environment settings. So you would just set it to Perforce, your server name, your username, and then you want to select your workspace. So we created YouTube example, that's our workspace, and then I'm going to accept settings. And now we can see that connection to source control was successful. I always sync on my first connection just to make sure that everything's synced up. So right click and sync. And to fully verify that we are connected, I'm just gonna right click on any blueprint here and verify that we can check out. Okay, so that means that we are connected to source control. Okay, so before we get started on the workflow, I want you to open Editor Preferences and type in source. And I want you to automatically check out on asset modification. Now, instead of being prompted every time that we make changes to blueprint or anything, anytime we do make changes, it's automatically checked out, which will save us a huge amount of time in our workflow. Okay, so what's our daily workflow like? First, we verified we're connected and synced, and now it's time to work. So I'm going to create a new blueprint class. This is going to be of type actor. It really doesn't matter. This is just for demonstration purposes of changes. So I'm going to call this BP Perforce. We can see here now that it has a question mark because it's newly created and it has not been added to the project. I'm going to go ahead and open it. I'm going to compile and save. And before I do any other changes, we notice now that it is marked for add because I compiled it saved. So I'm going to go ahead and just submit to source control before I do anything else. Now I'm going to go ahead and save my changes and add a change list description. So I'm going to make it simple. I'm just going to say created BP Perforce assets, and I'm going to submit the change. And now we can see submitted change list 599. Yours isn't going to have 599 change lists. It's going to be some other number, but that's just my amount of changes. Okay, so now I'm back in P4V, and we're going to verify that the change went through. I'm going to go to View, and you can go to Submitted Change Lists, or press Ctrl 2. And we can see now that this change was added in the change list. So we created the BP Perforce asset, and here is the asset that was modified. Awesome. Okay, so let's keep going. I'm gonna head back to the project, and I'm just gonna make like 2 or 3 more changes. Okay, so now I'm back in P4V, and we can see that I have populated the change list with a couple more changes. We created that asset, we added a box collision and changed the scene root, and then we added an overlap check. One thing we can do is, let's just say I wanted to get a certain revision of this. I want to take a look at revision 599 when I just created it. So I'm going to specify using a change list, and I'm going to browse to it. 599 when I created the Perforce asset. This is why change list names are good. You can also see what assets you have changed, but as long as you keep a good description and you know what's going on, it'll help you out. I'm going to go ahead and click on force operation and safe update, and then I'm going to get the revision. If I expand it, we can see now, if I hover over this asset, we can see that it's not the latest revision. So I'm going to go ahead and open the project up. Okay, so now immediately we can see an exclamation point over the asset. If we open it up, we can see again that the changes we made, scene root and the overlap check, are not here. One thing we can do is just sync everything. And now we're back up to date. Now, let's say I actually want to revert these changes that I made. I don't want to keep them anymore. I want to just go ahead and get rid of them. So let's go back. Let's actually undo the changes. I'm going to close the project out. And now what I want to do is I want to officially undo changes to right here. So what I'm going to do is right click on the project, and then I'm going to click on undo changes. Okay, so we have a few options. We can undo a single change, undo a range, or undo all changes from a selected point to most recent version. The safest one is undoing all changes from a selected point to most recent version. If you can imagine undoing a range or a single change with subsequent changes still being allowed, could cause some complications with the way that blueprints reference each other and all the asset references that are going on. So we'll just keep it nice and clean and undo all changes from a selected point. I'm going to select change list, and I'm going to choose the 599. So this is before we created the Perforce asset. I'm going to click OK and submit. And we can see now that it says, as a result of the undo operation, the following file is marked for deletion. So I'm going to click OK. Now, once I submit, you can see here that it's going to submit the change. And it's going to give me an automatic change list description, undo range, from change list 599 to now. And I'm just going to go ahead and submit. I'm just going to refresh and now get the latest. We can see here that the undo range is in our change list. And now I'm going to go ahead and open up the project. Okay, so now that we're back in our project, I'm going to head into the blueprints folder and we can see that the asset is no longer here. So we've officially reverted the project back to the change list before we created the asset. So one of the most useful things about using Perforce is just sanity of mind, right? You know you're safe if you make some changes. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this, and I know that whatever I do, I can undo. Okay, so I'm going to compile and save this change. Better add a comment there. Okay, so I made these changes, saved it, closed it, but I haven't submitted anything yet, but I want to undo the changes. So what I can do is right click on the asset and revert. Click on the file that I want to revert, select the files that should be reverted, and revert. And so now we see that the changes are gone. Awesome. So another really cool feature about Perforce is blueprint diffing. So I can right click on my asset, source control, and diff against the depot. So if I'm unsure of my changes, or I want to see the difference between the depot or what I've done, I can just right click and diff against. And you can see I added the print string, the get display name, the comment, and the overlap. So another thing we can do is we can diff against the history. So I'm going to right click, source control, and history. And you can see here that I added overlap or added explosion, added play sound. I'm going to right click on the latest revision and I want to see the difference between this and the previous revision. And if we go to the event graph, we can see here what I actually did. We added the play sound, and it's pretty verbose. It even tells you if nodes were moved. So really awesome and powerful stuff to keep track of your changes. Okay, so we're going to do some server administration. So we're going to start by deleting a workspace and also deleting projects from the depot. So first let's start with deleting the workspace. I'm going to go to View and Workspace or Control 5. You can see here, YouTube example, and I'm going to right click on it and delete workspace. It's going to prompt me if I am sure, and I'm going to say yes. So now our workforce deleted. We no longer have our workspace. Okay, but you might be fearful thinking you've lost your project. I'm going to go ahead and head back to YouTube example, and we can see here that my project still exists on the hard drive. So we didn't actually delete the project, we just deleted the workspace and the references within Perforce to it. So now, if we wanted to remove a project from our depot, how would we go about doing that? So that would be through administration. Go to Tools and Administration, or Control-Shift-A. I'm going to press Control-Shift-A. We are in administration. You can add users, permission, but what we're going to focus on is the depot. So I'm going to head over here to depot, and we can see all of the projects that I have in my depot. So the one we wanted to remove was my project. So I'm going to right click on it, and we have obliterate. You can see here we have obliterate all revisions, obliterate revisions up to, and obliterate revisions between. We're going to stick with obliterating all revisions because we want to completely remove the project. So I'm going to click on obliterate, and we get a warning about obliterating. And we're going to go ahead and proceed with obliterating files. Okay. And now we see that everything has been purged. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a solid understanding of Perforce and Unreal Workflow. If you feel like I omitted something, please let me know in the comments below. I stream the development of Rooster Rampage on twitch.tv, Casual Game Studio, and I would love to see you in chat. So thank you for watching, please like and subscribe.